First one up is House File 188, Representative Nash, and I will move House File 188 to be laid over and possible inclusion into our finance or public safety omnibus bill, I should say. Representative Nash, you have, you want me to move the amendment to get it into the shape you'd like?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. Yes, I would appreciate if you'd move the amendment for me.
Okay, the amendment should be in your packet, the A17-0168 amendment to get it into the shape the author would like. The chair will move that amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, the bill is in the shape you'd like it. Go ahead, Representative Nash.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I wanted to thank a couple folks before we begin. I wanted to thank Speaker Dowd and Chair Cornish for helping us get this scheduled at this time that we have had from the very beginning. I wanted to thank a few other folks, our friends from the NRA. I wanted to thank the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. I wanted to thank our friends at GOCRA, longtime Minnesota-based folks who have been helping us here with gun issues here at the Capitol for a very long time. And members, I wanted to take just a quick second to say that you've probably been hearing or been approached by another organization that is taking credit for getting this hearing scheduled. And as the author of these two bills, I'm always happy to meet with everybody, and I've met with many of you, hearing your concerns, and I just have to say that I've never met these folks. They've never come to my office, and I'm just kind of curious. They're called, I think they're Minnesota Gun Rights, and I have yet to meet with them, so just wanted to make sure that that got on the record. But I believe we're taking up House File 188, and I want to set the parameters for what we're talking about today. House File 188 is a bill that modifies our existing permit to carry a firearm statute 3 specific ways. It introduces what's called constitutional carry or permitless carry into Minnesota law. Under this bill, permits to carry would become optional within the state of Minnesota. Any individual who currently is allowed to own a firearm and carry a firearm under our existing law would be able to carry that firearm without a permit. It's important to note that individuals that are prohibited from owning a firearm or carrying a firearm today would still be strictly prohibited from doing so under this new law. Domestic abusers would not be able to own or carry firearms just as they cannot under today's law. Convicted felons would no longer be able to own or carry firearms just as they can't under today's law. All other prohibited persons would not be able to carry or own firearms just as they cannot under today's laws. Individuals could still follow the current process to obtain a permit to carry, and many do, so because this allows them to carry reciprocally in other states and can be used in lieu of permit to purchase when purchasing a handgun or certain long guns. Secondly, House File 188 creates a penalty for carrying a firearm unlawfully from a gross misdemeanor to a felony. A prohibited person carrying a firearm in public is committing a serious offense. Increasing this to a felony recognizes the seriousness of that offense. And finally, House File 188 modifies the existing approach to negotiating and solidifying reciprocity agreements with other states by requiring the Department of Public Safety to pursue such agreements with other states as required for reciprocity reasons with other states. As we move into testimony, you're going to hear a lot of information from both sides, and I ask you to keep an open mind. Listen carefully to the facts from those that have spent years studying these issues and ask questions based in fact. So we do have some testifiers. I would like to bring them down, and I believe you've got the list, Mr. Chair, as to who we're going to call down.
We have a Mr. Scott Roush, National Rifle Association. Come on down, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could just tell us who's on deck so they can be ready, so we don't take a bunch of time waiting for folks that might be in the overflow room.
A good idea.
Morning. Thanks for being here.
Rob Dorr will be up on next. Go ahead, Mr. Roush.
Good morning, Chairman Cornish and members of the committee, and thank you for taking public testimony on House File 188. First, I want to acknowledge the chairman. I understand a few groups have stated that you are being pressured into holding this hearing. I want to make it absolutely clear that this hearing is being held at the request of the chair and is completely within the timeline that was laid out when I first met with Representative Nash and Representative Cornish at the beginning of this session. So I thank the chair for his leadership that he has shown and the willingness to hold this hearing today. Why does NRA support bills that will enact constitutional carry? That question is very simple. We as an organization and our thousands and thousands of members across Minnesota believe an individual should not be required to pay a fee or obtain a government-issued license or permit to exercise his or her constitutional right to carry and possess a firearm. It is that simple. It is a fundamental right. We have fought and won this fight in 12 different states across the country, with New Hampshire being the latest to sign their constitutional carry bill into law just 2 weeks ago. Minnesota's neighbor to the west, South Dakota, is expected to enact their law in the coming days as their legislature just approved this bill this week. Around 20 other states are pursuing constitutional carry legislation, including your neighbor, Wisconsin. The trend of enacting constitutional carry legislation is occurring across the country, and the NRA fully supports Minnesota's efforts that are being led by Representative Jim Nash. Again, I thank the committee for holding this hearing. I look forward to a productive and respectful debate, and I thank you all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dorr, are you up? After Mr. Dorr would be Fred.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Representative Nash, members of the committee. My name is Rob Dorr. I'm the political director for the Gun Owners Caucus and also a permit to carry instructor here in the state of Minnesota. The Gun Owners Caucus, we're an all-volunteer organization. Despite being referred to often as the corporate gun lobby, we've never received a penny from gun manufacturers or the NRA or any other gun industry. And our members, we are all member supported and all volunteer. So just to point that out. Like I said, I'm a permit to carry instructor. I own my own training organization. And it is a little bit odd. It might seem odd to you. It certainly is odd to me that I would be here advocating for constitutional carry, which would cut out a significant portion of my business's profit from permit to carry classes. But I do value our constitutional rights. The issue of constitutional carry has been extremely contentious, but it's actually trending towards the norm. As Mr. Roush just pointed out, 12 states have passed constitutional carry, and 5 to 6 more are expected this year, and then another dozen or so within the next few years. This is where the momentum is going. What's important to realize is states like Vermont have never, ever had a gun bill are a limit on the exercise of the right to carry. The crime rates in the states that have passed constitutional carry, their rates have remained flat, or even crime rates, firearm homicide rates, have remained flat or decreased. There is no correlation that's been noted between constitutional carry and increased homicide rates. I'm sure many of you will recall prior to the passage of Minnesota's carry law, there was rhetoric that blood would be running in the streets and there'd be shootout over parking spaces. On the carry law, the director of Protect Minnesota at the time said, we are talking about increasing the gun violence in our state. We have almost 15 years of data to show that that's not the case at all. In fact, murder rates and violent crime rates have fallen dramatically since the passage of our carry law. You're going to hear much more of this rhetoric today. Organizations that have opposed every single proposal to advance the rights of law-abiding gun owners will be here, and we'll talk about how horrible things will go if we recognize Minnesota's constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Just remember, we've been down this road before, and the sky hasn't fallen. You will hear words from the late Justice Scalia that will be taken out of context in order to fit their position, and will be ignoring the entirety of his arguments. You will hear cherry-picked statistics and surveys, often funded by Michael Bloomberg or other anti-gun organizations, which have been called into question by numerous academics. This kind of statistic meddling that you'll see often includes instead of just talking about gun homicide, they'll include justifiable homicides, ones where the shooting was considered justified, police self-defense shootings, as well as suicides. In Minnesota, suicides make up about 80% of our gun deaths, which is tragic, but the correlation of a person's right to carry and suicides, it just doesn't follow. If a person can legally own a gun, they should legally be able to carry it. You'll likely hear a reference to a 24-year-old survey that says 40% of gun sales happen without a background check. That survey has been fact-checked by Washington Post and has been given 4 Pinocchios every time it's mentioned. It's just simply an inaccurate survey. You'll hear a claim that this bill eliminates property rights. That's false. Where you can carry today, you'll be able to carry under this bill. What's prohibited, what's a prohibited place today will be prohibited under this bill. Private businesses, homeowners, private organizations will all maintain their ability to set schools, they will all maintain their ability to set their own policies regarding carry within their private businesses. We respect private business owner rights. You'll likely hear complaints about the definition of public place under this bill. One opponent has publicly stated this bill defines public place in a way that we've never seen before. That's also false. In reality, the definition of public place in this bill is copied from current statute. You will hear about the number of permit holders who have had their permits revoked or voided. That number is 243 over the past 14 years. That might sound like a high number, but it actually equates to 0.05% of the law-abiding permit holders in Minnesota. 0.05% have had their permits voided or revoked. You will hear about supposed crimes committed by permit holders. The BCA is required to keep track of crimes committed by permit holders. These crimes don't matter whether they use a gun in the crime or not. So if they just committed a crime by nature of being a permit holder, they're agreeing to being tracked by the BCA. These crimes include traffic violations, forgetting to renew your tabs, or writing a bad check. You'll hear that this bill will allow anyone to carry a gun for any reason, and likely a reference to the permit denials. But what's important to realize is that nobody who would have been denied a permit is authorized to carry under this bill. Anyone who's a convicted felon, a domestic abuser, or has committed any crime that makes them ineligible from possessing a firearm in state or federal law is prohibited from carrying under this bill. Furthermore, as Representative Nash pointed out, this bill increases the penalty to a felony level for a person who is carrying unlawfully. Just as if any other law in our state, it is incumbent upon the citizen to make sure that they are abiding by the law. And finally, you will hear concerns about training. I must say that it is interesting to me to see organizations that said the training was insufficient and would lead to blood in the streets 15 years ago, now saying that removing this training would lead to blood in the streets. Just remember, we've been down here this road before and the sky hasn't fallen. Including the states with constitutional carry, 26 states issue carry permits with no training requirement at all. So as you would expect, the sky has not fallen. There's no correlation between firearms training and public safety, but what has been shown is the association with fees and training cause a barrier of entry for those who are less privileged, those in the middle and lower classes. So as an instructor,
it's actually not time. The 2 minutes doesn't apply until the public testimony starts. We're just winding up now, so please keep it.
As an instructor,
Just a second. When I read out the instructions, I said 15 minutes, and it took us a couple of minutes to introduce him, so he's right on 15 minutes now. So it's just the instructions I read to you a little while ago. You want to finish up now?
Yep, I'll finish up. So as an instructor, I firmly believe that every person should have as much training as they can afford. But training and government fees should not be a prerequisite to the exercise of self-defense or of a constitutional right. So I urge you to vote for this, or to encourage you to support this bill as it's being considered. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dorr. The first one we have on the list, I think there's about 10 people here, is Fred, and rather than pronounce your name, would you come up and from Burnsville? What's that? Okay. Come to the, and the next one behind you would be Reverend Nancy Nordbentz, Executive Director of Protect Minnesota. So if you want to get ready to go.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, sir. You have 2 minutes, and when we ask for time, please abide by it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. My name is Fred Gerster. I live in Burnsville, Minnesota. What I wanted to do today was discuss a few areas where people can look and find facts about such type things. One is the 2011 FBI Crime Table 1, which is the 20-year summary with 10 violent categories. It's done every year, every category for 20 years. Current levels would need to increase 200 to 300% in all 10 categories to reach the 1992 levels. That's how much crime has gone down. When we take a look at a state by state and where these things have gone down, it's the states that have done conceal and carry, castle doctrine, reasonable gun laws. We also need to look at a national reciprocity. If you can carry a gun in your home state, you should be able to go across state lines and not become a felon. If you take a plane trip and wind up diverted into New York City, Baltimore, DC, Chicago, or California, you can become a criminal now because you've landed there without, in many cases, an unregistered long arm or short arm. I also have a chart in the information I'm going to leave that's homicide rates from 1985 to 2012. We're now at 100-year lows. And the reason, again, is because of the American gun owner. They stopped 2.4 million crimes a year. And even the Obama study of 2013 and the Florida study now concur that they do stop well over 2.4 million crimes a year. In addition, the 88,000 crimes per year they said the government claimed for many years was a gross error. I also want to say that in addition to the American gun owner helping, when we look at the homicide rates, and I also have that in here, it's also grossly increased because it includes 400 police shootings, 260 legal castle doctrine type shootings, and probably somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 non-castle doctrines.
Okay, if you could wrap up. Thank you much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sure appreciate it. And folks, if I realize some of you disagree completely with what folks are saying on both sides, so but try to keep it to yourself and not approve or disapprove. Okay, after the Reverend Chief Paul Schnell will be next if you want to get ready. Reverend, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nancy Nord-Bence. I'm the new Executive Director of Protect Minnesota, and I really appreciate Mr. Dorr spending so much time giving our arguments. I'm just going to really react to a couple of things he said. One of them was 200-some denials of permit requests. I have here for each of you a printout of the permit request denials in your own districts in the last 10 years. Protect Minnesota looked at the BCI stats. We discovered that 364,000 people have applied to carry a permit to carry gun in Minnesota since 2006, between 2006 and 2016. Of that, 98.8% of them were approved. So in that 10-year period, 359,830,000 Minnesotans got permits to carry. So I don't think we can argue that this is onerous, that it's making it difficult for people to get permits to carry, since nearly over a third of a million people have done that in 10 years. Each of you here has a packet of the permit denials in your district that they gave reasons for. And we're going to make sure you get that. I want to point out that some of them are very small. 8 of you are in this little packet. Representative Constantine had only 3 permit denials in his district in that 10-year period. But hey, this is Eric Lucero, this is Deb Hillstrom, this is, thank you, Representative, thank you, Becker Finn, this is Representative Pinto. He broke my printer, he had so many, and this is Representative Joanne Ward, who had the most. I think we need to recognize that what's good about our current permit to carry law is that if you live in a part of the state where there's not a high population, there's not a high crime rate, there's not a gang influence, you might have very few people that don't get their permits to carry approved. But if you live in parts of the state where gangs are an issue, where crime is a much more significant issue, there are many, many thousands, 4,300 people in the state right now that have been denied permits to carry who would be able to carry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Next up, Chief Paul Schnell, followed by John Plotz, if you could get ready. Chief, welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and begin, sir.
Chair Cornish, committee members, my name is Paul Schnell. I am the Chief of Police for the City of Maplewood, testifying today on behalf of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. We are grateful for the opportunity to provide some brief testimony today. The Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association is not in support of House File 188 for the following reasons. We believe Minnesota's current permit to law provides reasonable and constitutionally sound public safety protections. As you know, under Minnesota law, permit holders are required to complete basic pistol safety training from a certified instructor before they are issued a permit to carry. That training includes, among other things, instructions in the fundamentals of pistol use, successful completion of an actual shooting qualification exercise, and instruction in fundamental legal aspects of possession, carry, and use, including self-defense and the restrictions in the use of deadly force. House File 188 eliminates the safety training requirement for those who just choose to constitutionally carry, allowing even people who've never handled a gun to carry one in public, which we feel represents a significant community safety concern. Under Minnesota's current law, police chiefs and sheriffs serve as a simple but critical public safety vetting mechanism for those wishing to lawfully purchase or carry a handgun. House File 188 allows a permitless carry and removes the reasonable expectation that thousands of law-abiding Minnesota gun owners have done since the law's current 2003 passage, which helps keep firearms from those who are prohibited. Chair Cornish, members of the Public Safety Committee, we urge you not to support this measure moving forward, and we thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Plotz.
Good morning.
And begin your,
Good. How are you doing?
go ahead and begin your 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Cornish and members of the committee. My name is John Pletz. I live in St. Paul, and I'm a member of the 40% Club, which I will explain in a moment. I want to let you know that I don't have a problem with properly and reasonably regulated firearms. Over the years, I've gone goose and duck hunting and skeet shooting. However, the bill before you today, HF 188, is neither a proper, sensible, or reasonable regulation of firearms. You may ask, how did I become a member of the 40% Club? On April 16th, 2014, I was driving our family car with my 20-year-old daughter, Michelle, our 8-month-old grandson, TJ, and my daughter's estranged boyfriend, Tim, in the back seat. We were driving Tim home after a dinner meeting. Halfway to Tim's house, Tim pulled out a concealed handgun and shot her point blank in the head, killing her. What exactly is the 40% Club? Well, according to recent statistics in the Trace, a nonprofit organization, 40% of Americans know someone who was fatally shot or committed suicide with a gun. I'm asking each member of this committee today to think about what I'm saying. I'm not going to mince words. Right now, the bill before you is just words on paper. You, the committee members, have no personal or emotional investment in it. However, if you decide to support this bill, and it does pass, then I hope that you, a family member or a friend, will be able to firsthand experience what it's like to be a member of the 40% Club, directly as a result of the new law created by this bill. It's simple. Watering down of existing sensible, proper, and reasonable gun laws and regulations like this bill makes it more likely that someone you know will be injured or killed by a firearm. Thank you.
Thank you. We let you run over a little bit because the other guy finished early. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Reverend Rolf Olson is next, and then Bill Krause would follow him. Welcome, Reverend. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Go ahead and begin.
Hello, representatives. Mr. Cornish, thank you for letting me address you this morning. My name is Rolf Olson. I'm a resident of Cottage Grove. I'm a pastor at Richfield Lutheran in South Minneapolis. I'm also a gun owner and a hunter. But I also come to you today as the father of Catherine Ann Olson. I'll put this up here. Catherine was a bright, lively, energetic young woman who at age 24 answered an ad for a Craigslist nanny, and she went to Savage, and a young 19-year-old man shot her in the back. His motivation, he just wanted to see what it felt like to kill somebody. Many of you read about it. It was on the front page of the Strib and of the Pioneer Press. So I've personally experienced the heart-rending grief of losing a loved one to senseless gun violence, and I'm passionate about sparing others that same pain. You can hear my pain right now. and I'm here to speak against the Nash permitless carry bill. And I'm against it because we are a culture of standards. We have standards that people need to meet to graduate, to get a job, to drive a car. We have standards to get elected to the state legislature. We're a culture of standards, and this bill would eliminate almost all standards to get a deadly weapon in our state. It would eliminate the age limit of 21. It would eliminate the requirement to pass a criminal background check. It would eliminate the requirement to pass gun safety training, an excellent program that my son and I enjoyed a number of years ago. If this bill passes, people who couldn't pass a criminal background check and have never learned how to handle a gun safely would be able to carry one in public. How would that protect public safety? But even more, this bill defines those places where guns could not be banned. These places would include schools, churches, and other places of worship, hospitals, colleges, even the state fairgrounds. Ironically, it exempts gun shows, gun shops, gun ranges, and so according to the logic of this bill,
Your 2 minutes are up, sorry.
I encourage you to vote against this bill.
Okay, thank you, sir. Bill Krause, followed by Cindy Olson, if you want to be ready to go.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hello, I'm Bill Krause from Plymouth, Minnesota. I've been a gun owner for close to 40 years. HF 188 Nash permitless carry is an extreme, irresponsible, and an insult to proud history of responsible gun ownership consistent with Minnesota sportsman tradition. I don't have a problem with responsible people owning guns, but we can't ignore that the U.S. has a gun death rate that is 25 times higher than that of other developed nations. We seem to want to ignore the deadly problem that we have here in the United States. Owning a gun requires taking responsibility for that gun. I remember when you needed to have a very good reason to be able to carry a gun in public. Under current law, you have to apply for a permit, get a background check, take a class, and pass a simple test to carry a gun. To take away the background checks and the training required to get a permit is the height of irresponsibility with a firearm. This permitless bill and other bills being pushed by the gun lobby make irresponsibility with a gun legal. HF 188 would let anyone carry a gun in any public place as defined by this bill, including churches, schools, and hospitals, as I see it's written. This is a threat to public health and safety. We should be working on funding peer-reviewed research on the American gun violence epidemic and preventing gun violence with common sense gun safety legislation. As a Minnesota resident and gun owner, I ask the committee to vote no on HF 188, permitless carry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next is Cindy Olson from Madison Lake. Cindy?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I represent nobody. Me. That's who. Just me. And maybe I speak for a lot of people in the state of Minnesota. Public policy is meant to better the lives of the public at large, to attempt to redress harms and create better systems for all of us. But in this case, peer-reviewed research indicates compellingly that both of the proposed policies we're going to talk about today create significant threats to the safety of the general public, which it is your charge to preserve and protect. Nancy's already covered the fact that it's easy to get a gun permit in the state of Minnesota. 71,000 were released last year. It's sort of like getting a driver's license. You know, you take some training, you take a test, you renew every few years. Hey, maybe we don't need driver's licenses. There's a thought. So research shows that longstanding protocols for the prudent use of checks and balances are effective in minimizing gun-related deaths, homicides, suicides, accidents. And yesterday I sent all of you homework on some of the research that I looked at from the Center for Disease Control and the Journal of the American Medical Association. Pretty good stuff. Minnesota ranks 7th in the country for states with the most gun restrictions and the fewest gun-related deaths. And research shows that conversely, when you relax your gun laws, you're going to have higher fatalities. So Those low gun-related fatalities include things like required permits, background checks, no stand your ground legislation, difficult access to guns. All of that keeps us in this relatively safe position. I don't own a gun. I never have, and I never will, but I do know many responsible gun owners who see the wisdom in having permits. My husband, a decorated Vietnam veteran, first cab, military intel, does not support these bills. My 2 grown sons who hunt, one of them has a permit to carry. They do not support these bills. And the friend of one of my sons, who's a wounded and decorated Army Ranger, currently in service with multiple deployments, does not support these bills. Please vote no.
Thanks for coming. Next up is Tim Nelson, followed by Dennis Flaherty, Executive Director for the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association. Mr. Nelson.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Good. Good morning, Chairman Cornish and representatives. My name is Tim Nelson. I'm a 20-year retired Air Force veteran, having flown B-52s for 10 years active duty, including the Gulf War and the C-5s and the reserves. I'm a lifelong hunter, an NRA member, a conceal and carry permit holder, and I'm the person who called the FBI and Zacharias Moussaoui when he tried to get training in 2001. And the FBI credits my call for them apprehending him 27 days before 9/11. I believe in doing the right thing, no matter the personal cost. I believe in the Second Amendment rights, and I believe there is a great responsibility that goes with those Second Amendment rights. In the military, I was required to qualify every year with my sidearm, every year. And I had to be proficient, competent with my weapon, and to know what the rules of engagement were. As a law-abiding citizen, I support my permit, and I believe it's a responsible gun owner. Having to renew it every 5 years isn't a burden to me. It's the right thing to do as a part of the community member. Permitless carry undermines these very systems that promotes responsible and safe gun ownership. I have an obligation to, we all have an obligation to conduct ourselves in a law-abiding manner, especially when handling or having access to firearms. But sometimes individuals face mental health issues that do not allow them to think rationally. And that's where we need family, law enforcement, and the courts to develop a systematic way to get these people help. I was dating Barbara Larson when she was murdered by her husband, December 23rd of last year. Her ex-husband was a retired Faribault police captain, somebody I would think we could trust with a firearm after he retired. He shot her in the head at the Chamber of Commerce 5 times before taking his own life. His 2 children, his grandchildren, and I are all devastated by this senseless act. Barb was the 17th person murdered in Minnesota to lose her life to domestic violence in 2016. It was the second murder-suicide in Faribault in a 2-week period. We need to have common sense gun laws that protect and preserve the rights of law-abiding gun owners.
Sir, your time is up.
Thank you.
I wanted to let you finish your story, though, so I let you run a hair over. I didn't want to cut you off in the middle of that story.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Flaherty, Dennis Flaherty, the Executive Director of the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association. Welcome, Mr. Flaherty, followed by Jeff Edblad and then Jim Backstrom, and that'll be the end of our public testimony when these 3 are done. Mr. Flaherty.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dennis Flaherty, and I'm Executive Director of the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, and I represent about 8,500 rank and file officers throughout the state. I want to be here this morning to go on record in opposition to this legislation and state that we do feel that this that the legislature does in fact have the right to regulate firearms, and we do believe that there's really no nexus between or any kind of guarantee in the Constitution as it relates to people's ability to carry loaded firearms. We think that the legislature has struck a fairly good balance with our current law dealing with pistol permitting, and by the fact that it requires backgrounds and requiring applicants to complete training in gun safety and and show that they're proficient in the use of a firearm before a permit is issued. We think that serves the state well, and we absolutely oppose the repeal of our current permitting statutes, the backgrounding requirements of people that are going to be carrying handguns, and the training requirements. So just simply to be brief, we do oppose this effort. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Director Flaherty. Now we have Jeff Edblad, Assn County Attorney and President of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, followed by Jim Backstrom, Dakota County Attorney. Go ahead, sir.
Chairman Cornish, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Jeff Edblad. I am the President of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, and I'm currently serving in my 6th term as the elected Isanti County Attorney. And I'd like to thank you this morning for providing the opportunity for the Minnesota County Attorneys Association to publicly join our partners in the Minnesota Law Enforcement Coalition community to publicly oppose House File 188, and I would urge you to not pass this legislation. Thank you. Mr. Backstrom will be waiving his testimony, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Backstrom. It helped us shorten up our program here a little bit. Now we have member questions, and if we could just try to ask a question, and I will abide by it myself and not give long editorials. Or go ahead, Representative Dean, and then, well, Representative Considine, Representative Becker-Finn. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the testifiers who came down and spoke. Your voice here at the Capitol is critical. I could go down many rabbit holes and talk about a lot of issues around the Second Amendment, what it allows, what it doesn't allow, and restrictions. But I really think I'm coming down to one question, and that question is for the bill author. What problem is this bill trying to solve?
Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Dean. It's a good question. My opinion is, if you remember the Supreme Court ruling of that upheld the individual Second Amendment right that we are able to keep and bear arms, and I think it's a constitutional argument that we should be able to have. And I think that we've heard testimony that says that the purchase of a permit and so on for law-abiding citizens and people who are permitted, and this bill does address those who are not permitted, is a constitutional right. And that is the reason that I'm bringing this bill forward. I want to have the conversation, and because I do think that a law-abiding gun owner has the ability, as we do in many other states, as you've heard, should have that right, and that is their right to do so, and I'm supportive of it.
A follow-up?
Yeah, a couple of follow-ups. So you have mentioned that individuals who are prohibited currently from carrying a firearm will still be prohibited from carrying a firearm, although now we have no system that's going to verify who those individuals are, because they'll have access currently to, they have access currently through gun shows, but they'll now have no requirements. And it was brought up the issue of mental health. And I think that one of the things that our law that we currently have in place oftentimes will allow an individual to get past that point of crisis of mental health, which they may not be able to be thinking in their right mind, and possibly not end up committing suicide. So, I don't think your answer was really good about what problem is this trying to solve. And I understand people's passion about wanting to be able to carry firearms. And this is my personal point of view. I choose not to live my life with that kind of fear, that I am threatened every moment of the day, that I need to carry a gun to protect myself. Because if that's the way you think, and if that's the way you function your life, you don't know what freedom is.
Okay, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill Tillman, Wyatt Earp, Wild Bill Hickok, Seth Bullock, Bat Masterson, heroes from our American West, town tamers. First thing each one of them did was draw a line in the sand and say, you can't bring a gun in past this line. What would you say to them?
Representative Nash.
Mr. Chair and Representative Considine, again, as I had referenced in the Heller decision, that the Supreme Court says that the Second Amendment is a guaranteed right to own a firearm and keep and bear arms, and I'm just merely trying to codify that in here, and so that's all I'm trying to do. And you know, other than them having great TV shows from our Wild West days, you know, I can't say because I don't know what their intent was, and you know that's my perspective. And as Representative Dean just said, you know, he has his feelings on this. I have mine, and that's why we have hearings like this. That's why we have bills that come forward, because we want to talk about what's important to us and to our constituents, and that's why we're here to have this conversation.
Representative Considine, follow up?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Lucero. Or excuse me, Becker Finn, Representative Becker Finn, and then Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question for Representative Nash is, how important do you think it is to prevent domestic violence?
Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Becker Finn. You know, I do believe that preventing domestic violence is important, and I'm sure you're going to draw a corollary here, and I'll just wait for that. But I do believe that preventing domestic violence is important, and you know, I think that again, I'll wait for your next line of questioning.
Representative Becker Finn.
Because we hear a lot in this committee about how much everybody cares about preventing domestic violence, and we hear a lot in this committee, both sides, about how much we support law enforcement. And the fact is that when we have more guns, there's a better chance that a gun is going to be present in a domestic violence situation. And the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation makes it 5 times more likely, at least 5 times more likely, that that woman is going to end up killed. And so I just want to make sure that we're all clear that when we say that we care about preventing domestic violence and domestic violence homicide, that there's a direct relation with access to guns and how that affects domestic violence homicides in our communities.
Okay, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have one of the packets that was passed out, and it's titled Examples of Permit to Carry Denials in District 30B, Representative Eric Lucero. So when I page through this thing, there are 61 pages that I counted, an average of approximately 15 per page, so that totals 915 in this stack that I have here. Well, District 30B includes the city of Hanover, which straddles Wright County and Hennepin County lines. The total population is 3,200. On the Hennepin County side, I actually text the mayor of Hanover. There's only 800 people that live on the Hennepin County side of Hanover. So 915 names out of 800, obviously the data doesn't make sense. And so as I have often said, if you torture the data long enough, it'll confess to anything. In this case, this is not a torturing of the data. I think this is just flat out made up because it doesn't make sense. You can't have 915 names out of a population of 800. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Representative Pinto, followed by Hills. Remember, we've just got a few minutes left for member questions. If we have too many, we'll cut into the opposition's testimony next time. So. Okay, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As alluded to before, I feel like there's so many different possible lines here to go through. What I want to ask about is the assertion that this wouldn't permit someone to have a gun who's not currently permitted to do so. It doesn't change those requirements. And I guess what I'm struggling with on that is it seems like when I look at the kinds of considerations that are taken into account when somebody gets a permit, it seems like this would allow somebody who is, first of all, teenagers, 18 to 21, people who are not trained, we've talked about that, people who are listed in the criminal gang investigative data system right now can't get a permit, but this will allow them to get a gun, and citizens, somebody who's not a citizen or a permanent resident of the United States, they could have a gun. There's nothing there. And then most significantly is people who have been determined to be consider to be a danger to themselves and to others. Right now, that's a grounds, and I understand Representative Lucero's point, but when I look at any one of these individual lines, I see some people who seem like it'd be pretty scary for themselves and the rest of us for them to have a gun, and this would allow them to do so. So I'm wondering about the response to that line of questioning.
And
Representative Nash.
Mr. Chair and Representative Pinto, thank you for the question. And I've asked Professor Joe Olson, who helped us draft this, because I don't think that what you've asserted is necessarily true. And I want to make sure that, as we said in the intro, that people who are prohibited are not permitted in this bill. And I'd like him to go line by line, because as you've heard me joke in other committees, I'm neither a lawyer and don't play one on television, so I don't want to presume to offer legal advice. So I'll turn it over to the lawyer.
Mr. Olson, can you do it in a minute? We haven't got time for back and forth a lot here.
Yes, I can do it in a minute. My name is Joseph Olson. I'm a professor of law at Mitchell Hamlin Law School. I'm obviously not here on their behalf. I'm here as president of the Gun Owners Civil Rights Alliance. When the carry bill was drafted in 2003, an attempt was made to list all of the kinds of people who were already prohibited from possession of firearms. So if you can't lawfully possess a firearm, you certainly can't carry one. And the intention is, under Representative Nash's bill, is if you can't possess one legally, you can't carry one. There were legislation 2 years ago, I believe, maybe 3, dealing with domestic violence situations, and we supported that legislation. And those people are prohibited in certain circumstances. So this is not intended to change the existing law with respect to who is prohibited from possessing, and if you can't possess, obviously you can't carry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Pinto.
No, just briefly, so I understand those assertions, Professor, but I guess as I look at this further, I just don't see where in the law someone who poses, who has a substantial likelihood of being a danger to themselves or the public is otherwise prohibited, where someone who is on the criminal gang investigative data system is otherwise prohibited, and where someone who is not trained in the safe use of a pistol is otherwise prohibited.
Was that a question?
No. Seems like with the timing it probably isn't, but I'd be happy to engage with him and the other time. I'd be happy to have it be a question, but I'm guessing probably there isn't time for that.
Why don't we do it offline and go to Representative Hillstrom? That's to be the last question. We're already overdue on our member questions. Go ahead, Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is for Representative Nash. So Representative Nash, in your amendment, you put back in the pieces about when you have to tell law enforcement that you have a permit or when you are carrying. And I actually think that we need to have some discussion about how this would actually work, because I'm not sure it actually would work. So under current law, if you are stopped, for example, in your motor vehicle, and you have a permit, if law enforcement asks you if you have a permit, you have to display. You have to tell them. And if they ask you, you have to tell them that you're in possession of a gun. So if law enforcement stops someone and there's a gun present in the vehicle, law enforcement would almost have to do an instant background check on the person that they stopped immediately to find out if they can legitimately have that firearm or not, from my reading of the language of the proposal. So is that your intention, that any time law enforcement sees a firearm in a vehicle, that they would have to do a full and complete immediate background check of anyone prior to letting them leave the scene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Hillstrom. Again, I'm going to let the lawyer who drafted this go through the legal nuances of that.
Unless I'm wrong, Representative Hillstrom, right now, when you get stopped with a shotgun or a rifle, you don't have to have a permit for that. And we don't even have to have a case on those guns due to a recent law that we passed. So I would imagine if you see a gun, like a lot of armed people walked into here today, a few of them with a gun showing, and nobody asked them if they had a permit. You probably treat them the same way as you would then. But Representative, or Mr. Olson, go ahead.
I think the situation is the same as it currently is. If you see a firearm, the officer can inquire about it, which is exactly what they do today.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up then, and maybe I can get some additional information offline as well. But right now, if law enforcement asks you if you can legally possess that firearm, you would have a permit to show, either a permit to carry or permit to purchase, to show that you can legally be in possession of it. If you go to a permitless, there is nothing to show. So other than doing a full and complete background check with that person, there is no way for that law enforcement officer to know whether or not that firearm is possessed legally, I believe, from my reading.
Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I don't know enough about the information that's available on the computers in the patrol cars to know whether it's available, how long it would take to get it. It's, I simply can't answer that question. I mean, there are lots of times when a police officer comes up to a car and observes things in the car that don't appear to be 100% on the up and up, that they have to investigate. And I think this would simply be one of those cases. I understand there's a nice one-pager out from the Department of Public Safety about how all this wonderful information is available at one click on the computer.
And Mr. Chair and Representative Hillstrom, I'm happy to talk with you offline to make sure that we clarify that so we can get on the same page.
I think when I'm hunting in Arizona, I leave the handgun laying right on the street. I've been stopped by cops before, or talking to them, they don't even look at it second time. I mean, I think after we lose our fear of guns, we get to realize just because there's a gun there doesn't mean you have to have a fear or run a check, unless you have some reason to believe that they're a prohibited person. But that ends the member questions. And now we're going to Representative Nash. Do you want like a minute to close? That we got to go here, and then I'll lay your bill over.
Yeah. You know, in the spirit of brevity, I appreciate the spirited conversation. We have had conversations offline. I do appreciate that very much. You know, this is something that is very important to Minnesotans, both sides, and we want to make sure that we hear both. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your time and ready to move on.
Okay, with that, we'll lay over Bill House File 188 for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill.